Welcome back to English Echo Daily, where you practice real English and think about real life at the same time. Today, we are getting into a topic that I think a lot of people have a complicated relationship with. We're talking about discipline, self-discipline, and more specifically, why motivation almost always lets you down, and what actually works instead.
And before we start, we want to hear from you in the comments right now. Tell us, are you someone who relies on motivation to get things done? Or do you have routines and systems that keep you moving even when you don't feel like it? Which one are you? Drop it below. We read every single comment.
Okay, so let's start with something that I think most people have experienced, but rarely say out loud. You get inspired. Maybe you watch a documentary, or read a book, or have a really good conversation, and suddenly you feel it, that fire, that clarity, that sense of, yes, this is what I need to do. This is who I want to be, starting now. And it feels real. It feels different from all the other times.
And then 3 days later, it's gone. Or a week later, and you're back to the same patterns, the same habits, the same version of yourself that existed before the inspiration hit. And you feel confused, maybe a little defeated, because it felt so real. You genuinely meant it. So what happened?
What happened is that motivation did exactly what motivation always does. It showed up, burned brightly, and disappeared. Because motivation is an emotion, and emotions are temporary by design. They rise and fall based on sleep, stress, blood sugar, what happened in your last conversation, whether it's raining outside. They are not a reliable foundation for building anything.
And I think this is one of the most liberating things you can understand about yourself. If you've been failing to follow through on the things you care about, the problem is almost certainly not that you lack willpower or character or drive. The problem is that you've been waiting for the right feeling before you act. And the right feeling is one of the least dependable things in human experience.
There's a phrase I love, and I think it captures this perfectly. Amateurs wait for inspiration. Professionals show up anyway. And the word professional there doesn't mean someone who gets paid. It means someone who has decided that what they're doing is too important to be held hostage by how they feel on any given day.
And that shift from I'll do it when I feel like it to I'll do it because it's time, that is the shift from motivation to discipline. And it sounds harsh when you put it that way. It sounds joyless. But I actually think it's the opposite. Because when your actions stop depending on your mood, you get an enormous amount of freedom back. You stop being a passenger in your own life, carried wherever your emotions decide to take you. You become the driver.
And I want to address something here, because I think there's a version of discipline in popular culture that is actually counterproductive. The ultra-hardcore, 4 in the morning, cold shower, push through everything, never rest, sleep is for the weak version. And I think for most people, that image of discipline is actually a barrier, because it feels like something you have to become before you can start, like you need to already be that person in order to build that life.
Right. And the irony is that the people who actually have strong discipline, the ones who consistently do what they said they do, they're usually not operating from that intense, dramatic, grinding energy. They're operating from something much quieter, from systems, from routines, from having made the decision ahead of time, so that in the moment, there's nothing to decide.
That's the key thing right there, making the decision in advance. Because the moment of action, the moment when you're tired or distracted, or the couch is right there and Netflix is right there, that is the worst possible moment to be making a decision about what you should do. In that moment, the short-term feeling almost always wins. You need to have already decided.
This is why environment design matters so much. And we've talked about this in earlier episodes. If you want to exercise in the morning, you don't decide in the morning whether you feel like it. You decided the night before, when you were clear-headed and motivated. And then you laid out your clothes, maybe set your coffee maker, remove the friction. So when the morning comes, the path of least resistance is already the right path.
And this is also why routines are so powerful. Not because there's anything magical about doing things at the same time every day, but because routine removes the decision cost. When something is just what you do on Tuesday mornings, you don't spend mental energy negotiating with yourself about whether to do it. It's not a choice anymore. It's just what happens.
And that mental energy, the energy you save by not having to convince yourself to do the thing every single time, that's real and valuable. Psychologists call it decision fatigue. Every decision you make depletes a small amount of cognitive resources, and by the end of a long day of decisions, your capacity for self-control is genuinely lower than it was in the morning, which is why most people's discipline collapses in the evening and not at 7 in the morning.
So one of the most practical strategies you can use is to front-load the important things. Do the work that requires discipline early when your resources are fresh. Don't leave the hard stuff for after you've already spent the whole day making decisions, managing stress, dealing with people, absorbing information. By that point, your brain is genuinely less capable of doing the hard thing. It's not weakness, it's neuroscience.
Now, I want to talk about something that I think is the deeper engine of real discipline. Because systems and routines and environment design, those are incredibly useful. But there's something underneath all of them that determines whether they stick or fall apart, and that's your relationship with discomfort.
Say more about that.
Okay, so at its core, discipline is the ability to choose the long term over the short term, to do the thing that serves your future self even when your present self doesn't want to. And every single time that happens, every time you go to the gym when you'd rather stay in bed, every time you work on the hard project when you'd rather scroll your phone, every time you have the difficult conversation instead of avoiding it, what you're actually doing is tolerating a short-term discomfort in service of something that matters more.
And if you've spent years avoiding discomfort, if your default has been to always take the easier, more comfortable option, then your tolerance for it is genuinely low. Not because you're lazy, but because you've never trained that muscle. And like any muscle, discomfort tolerance can be built, but it has to be practiced, deliberately.
And the way you build it is almost embarrassingly simple. You do small, hard things on purpose. Things that are inconvenient, uncomfortable, or require a little more effort than necessary. You take the stairs. You finish the conversation before checking your phone. You sit with the difficult email for 5 minutes before closing the tab. You resist the snooze button once. None of these things are dramatic, but each one is a rep. And enough reps over enough time changes what feels hard.
Because what happens, and this is the part that people don't anticipate, is that as your discomfort tolerance increases, the things that used to feel hard start to feel normal. The 40-minute workout that felt brutal in month 1 feels manageable in month 3. The writing session that felt like pulling teeth in week 1 starts to feel like just something you do. Not because it stops requiring effort, but because you've become someone who does hard things. And that identity makes the effort feel different.
There's that identity piece again. We keep coming back to it because it really is foundational. Discipline that comes from I have to do this burns out. Discipline that comes from this is who I am sustains. And you build the identity the same way you build anything, through consistent action over time. You don't wait to feel like a disciplined person before you act like one. You act like one over and over until the feeling catches up.
And I want to address the days when it genuinely falls apart, because they will happen. You will miss the workout. You will skip the habit. You will have a week where everything slides. And how you respond to that moment is actually one of the most important variables in whether the discipline sticks long term.
Because the trap, and we touched on this in an earlier episode, is the all or nothing response. I missed 3 days so the streak is broken, so I might as well wait until next month to start again. And that logic sounds almost reasonable, which is what makes it so dangerous. Missing 3 days is nothing. Missing 3 days and then telling yourself a story about why it's over, that's everything.
The rule that I think works best is simple. Never miss twice. 1 missed day is an accident. 2 missed days is the beginning of a new habit, the wrong one. So the most important session is always the next one. Not a bigger session to compensate, not a dramatic recommitment, not a new plan, just the next regular one. You just keep going.
And I think there's something really important in the self-compassion piece here, because a lot of people use discipline as a weapon against themselves. They're harsh, critical, punishing when they fall short. And that harshness actually makes things worse, not better. Research consistently shows that self-compassion after a setback predicts better long-term behavior than self-criticism does. Being kind to yourself when you slip is not making an excuse. It's actually the more effective strategy.
If this episode is resonating with you, if you're thinking about your own habits and systems as we talk, hit that like button right now. It really helps us and it costs you nothing. Thank you.
So let's bring it together, because I think there are a few things we've said today that are genuinely worth carrying with you. The first one, motivation is an emotion, not a strategy. It will come and go. Build systems that work without it.
The second, make decisions in advance, not in the moment. Design your environment so the right choice is also the easy choice. Remove as many in-the-moment negotiations as possible.
The third, build your discomfort tolerance deliberately. Do small, hard things on purpose. Every rep counts. Every time you choose the harder right thing over the easier wrong thing, you are becoming someone different.
And the fourth, be kind to yourself when you fall short. Not because it doesn't matter, but because self-compassion is what gets you back up. Self-criticism just keeps you down.
Discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about being consistent. It's about showing up more often than you don't. It's about the average over time, not the performance on any single day. And that version of discipline, quiet, consistent, unglamorous, is the one that actually built a life.
It builds a life. Okay, before we go, subscribe to English Echo Daily if you haven't yet. We publish a brand new episode every single day, always in real natural English, always about something genuinely worth thinking about.
And our final question for the comments. What is one habit or routine you want to build, and what has been getting in the way? Tell us, be specific. Sometimes just writing it out is the first step toward actually doing it.
See you tomorrow.
Take care. Bye.